If anyone here has played the new Fnaf Ruin DLC, one of the first thoughts you may have is, who is this guy? Oh, wrong theory. You may also be thinking, is this the same Freddy as Gregory's Freddy from Security Breach? Well, he's missing his head just like what happened at the end of Security Breach, so it has to be the same Freddy, right? Well, hold on there, my friend. There's plenty more that needs to be analyzed, and that hasn't been noticed by the community yet, and boy am I excited to show you all, so let's just get into it. Alrighty, so for context, if there are people here who haven't even played the Ruin DLC or even Security Breach, you might want to watch a playthrough first, because there is a lot to unpack. Luckily for you, I have both playthroughs of every game on my channel. Alrighty, plugging aside, our buddy, Mr. Freddy, has been Gregory's companion during Security Breach, because he has sort of a special connection with him, which caused him not to attack him like the other animatronics. During their adventures, they eventually get to the laser tag portion of the Pizzaplex called Phaser Blast, and what a normal person would see was an awesome, sick laser tag arena. It actually hides one of the game's main villains, Vanny, just above the laser tag arena, which by the way I did an awesome theory on it that proved that there's actually two Vanessas in the game, so you should totally go watch it like right now. And that hideout is what allows the player to access one of the endings in the game, which is the Vanny ending. Probably the worst ending you could get in the entire game. This ending, Gregory has an awesome idea of taking on Vanny, who literally has an entire army of staff bots at her hand, and attempting to stop what she's doing by sending Freddy out to get her. Needless to say, just for one kid and a robot, the results weren't really good. Freddy gets attacked by the staff bots and pushed off of a platform and promptly gets ripped to pieces by the staff bots. Now, going into Ruin, Cassie comes to the same arena in the Pizzaplex where Freddy is destroyed. And what do we see? We see a broken down version of the Freddy we saw in the Vanny ending, but something is just a wee bit off about him. Oh yeah, he's missing his head and he also wants to kill you, which, isn't that weird? How Freddy is ready to die for Gregory before, but now he wants to attack any child that he sees? Don't worry, I'll cover that in just a second. Cassie walks up to Freddy, and he rises from the rubble to reveal his missing head and his child murdering intent, and starts chasing Cassie. She runs and she finds an AR hindering device and shuts it down. She puts on her Vanny mask and boom, Freddy's gone. Which also is kinda weird because literally every other animatronic she sees has shown up in the AR world. Now, because our buddy Freddy is so iconic, people like myself don't really like the idea of him wanting to kill you in the game. So people have been having a heavy debate ever since they first saw him over which Freddy is in Ruin, Gregory's Freddy or a different one. We'll call them Freddy 1 and Freddy 2. Of course, the main point going in favor of alternate Freddy is the prototype lettering on his foot, which of course Freddy 1 did not have. Something I believe people have been glossing over sometimes when it comes to the debate is when Gregory comes to visit Freddy in the endo room in the basement of the Pizzaplex, Freddy becomes concerned about whether or not he is the first Freddy, or if there are multiple versions of him, and kind of just has an existential crisis afterwards. That sort of opens the door up to not only multiple Freddys, but also that the Freddy suit can be used on a new endoskeleton, or the other way around. So it's entirely plausible that Freddy could have been replaced. One point I want to make is that if Ruin happened in the Princess Quest ending, which seems to be the case so far, and it's kind of what everybody is agreeing on, including myself, the Pizzaplex would not have been broken down by the time Gregory left with Vanessa, so Freddy's body has been in Phaser Blast before the building came down on top of him. In Ruin, the Mimic says that something is tunneled out and destroyed everything, which led to it being trapped in the basement. This is helped by the fact that we see the blob near the surface at the beginning of Ruin, and he just barely sneaks away when he comes down the steps, but he's there. And it kind of makes sense that something big like that tunneling out from literally the very bottom of the Pizzaplex would cause quite a bit of destruction. But here's the thing. When looking back on Freddy's placement in Ruin's Security Breach, because Freddy is supposed to be destroyed before the Pizzaplex came down, he should be under all of the rubble. But that's not what we see in Ruin. Freddy, while being pinned down of course, is actually laying on a huge pile of garbage. In fact, it's a bunch of old staff bots, which is kind of weird considering that those were the things that actually killed the first Freddy. This would make no sense if Freddy in Ruin is the same as Freddy 1 in Security Breach, but that isn't even scratching the surface of the evidence I have. Another super weird fact that people call out is Freddy 2 has a present inside of his stomach hatch, which also doesn't make sense because he never had one since Gregory got the Fazwatch at the beginning of the game. It's also not the same box, it's an entire different color scheme. That's super weird. Alrighty, here is where it gets real interesting. So, if any of you have played Security Breach, you probably had to go to the parts and service area to help put Freddy's head back together after it was taken off by Vanessa. Wait, his head? That is an odd coincidence, don't you think? People have not noticed in parts and service that there are actually a bunch of endoskeletons hanging around in there. But not only that, there's also testing chambers, and by the way, one of them is destroyed, presumably by something that wanted to escape. Hello guys, this is Snibble from the future. I wanted to come back and just point out something, that the fact that there is a broken cell in the parts and service room is such a specific and odd choice for Steel Wool to have put in the game for Security Breach. It's almost like they're pointing it to us, like we're supposed to be paying attention to it for theories. Now we know that Freddy 2 is labeled as a prototype, but usually prototypes are not finished versions and still have to have tests run on them to make sure that they're functioning properly, which would be a very good reason to have testing cells to keep them in. Alrighty, that's cool, but it doesn't really convince you, does it? Let's take a closer look. I said that you usually run tests on prototypes, right? And improve them. Parts and service is literally the perfect place to do something like remove Freddy's head. I hope you all see where I'm going now. Not only this, but there's another tiny clue that can be found right before you put Freddy's head back on.
Could you, reattach my head?
In case of an emergency, the protective cylinder will protect important service personnel outside of the protective cylinder. Deactivating animatronic safety protocols now.
Safety protocols are turned off. That kind of makes sense why it would cause some problems for Gregory in the game. It may or may not have led to Freddy being into his killing mindset. That also explains why he attacks Cassie in Ruin without even thinking twice. If you're still not convinced, do y'all remember that broken cell I was talking about, where I presume Ruin Freddy escaped from having his head removed? I wonder if there's any more clues I can find. That's it, a green present. Where have we seen that green present before? Oh, it's just like the one that we see in Ruin Freddy. Now I don't know for sure if you all are freaking out or not, but I am really excited to reveal all this to you. It's one of those no way kind of things, you know? One more final note about this theory. My good friend MatPat,
friendship not guaranteed,
has theorized about Freddy as well. He thinks that Ruin Freddy is the same Freddy as Gregory's, based on the reason that he disappears when Cassie puts the mask on. He says that it's because of, in the beginning of Security Breach, right before the game starts, Freddy crashes in the middle of his performance and is later rebooted into safe mode, which would take him out of the neural network of the Pizzaplex, making him not appear when Cassie has the mask on. And to me, I think that makes perfect sense. But now with all this information I've discovered, I'm not entirely sure he's correct about it. I believe a similar reasoning can be used to explain exactly why this is not the same Freddy. We all know that he's a prototype, of course. That is made very obvious by Steel Wool, and I don't exactly think they would include that detail for no. But the fact that Freddy is a prototype and has been having tests run on him, plus the fact that he's never even been used for a show at all, most likely, he would have never been integrated into the neural network in the first place, especially if you have certain protocols being turned off when you're working on him. This to me explains why Freddy does not show up in the Vanny mask. You know, now that I think about it, isn't it kind of weird how we've already had two theories on this channel about how we've had two separate doppelgangers impersonating each other? Maybe skinwalkers are real in the Fnaf universe. Or maybe it's just Steel Wool and Scott trying to confuse the fan base even more than it already is. But with that, I think the theory's finished, and man, it really was fun making this theory. If you all have anything to point out, any extra lore to tell me, feel free to leave it in the comments. It only makes theorizing easier anyways. And thanks to my editor IHVR, I would not be able to do nearly as well on these editings, because it is not really my strong suit. Feel free to go check out his channel. He does virtual reality and gaming videos. And if you all got this far, I really appreciate it, and I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you all later on. Goodbye.